Chapter 580 The Scorpion Tiger dies and Zhong comes out. Another Huo Yuao suddenly appeared, and this time, he appeared behind the Scorpion Tiger Douluo. The Huo Yuao who had appeared before was still in the sky. Two identical people appeared at the same time. How could that not be astonishing? Spiritual interference domain. Huo Yuao's second domain type ability. Not many people paid attention to this domain because it wasn't as well known as his snowy dance of ultimate ice, but there were many instances where his spiritual interference domain was much more fearsome than his snowy dance of ultimate ice. Not a single one of the four soul skills that the Sky Dream Iceworm's million-year soul ring had bestowed upon him were useless. Formidable soul power undulations erupted in the sky as Huo Yuao's dark golden terraclaw sliced through the air and went straight for the Scorpion Tiger's enormous martial soul true body. Brutal force to break brutal force. Zhang Peng was affected by Huo Yuao's formidable spiritual confusion and single target enfeeblement. He couldn't possibly dodge this attack, but just as Huo Yuao's claw struck Zhang Peng, he suddenly trembled vigorously before a dark golden beam of light erupted from his body. Zhang Peng's Scorpion Tiger true body was torn to pieces in front of Huo Yuao's dark golden terraclaw. However, a dark shadow suddenly appeared soundlessly behind Huo Yuao's back. Frightening sharp blades went straight for Huo Yuao's heart from behind, exuviating cicada. It was one of the Scorpion Tiger Douluo's automatic defensive soul skills, and this soul skill was known as a godly skill compared to his other soul skills. This soul skill was automatically triggered when Zhang Peng was struck with an attack that he couldn't defend himself against. If this automatic release was successful, then his original body would be extracted, and he would use 30% of his soul power to instantly teleport himself to wherever he wanted. Zhang Peng had cultivated this soul skill to its highest possible level, and he could reach anywhere within 1,000 meters with it. At the same time, exuviating cicada allowed him to use another 30% of his soul power to unleash an attack at his peak condition. However, he couldn't use any other soul skills during this time. 60% of the Scorpion Tiger Douluo's soul power would be expended after this attack, so he would evidently be unable to continue the battle. This attack was excellent in a fight to the death, and it was also excellent in ambushing others. There would always be many strange and peculiar soul skills in the world of soul masters. Zhang Peng had thought that he would definitely win this battle when he first locked horns with Huo Yuao because Huo Yuao had already fought 3 times before this. But when they truly clashed, Huo Yuao's formidable spiritual power and his spirit eye's various soul skills made Zhang Peng understand that he was no match for Huo Yuao even when he had already expended so much energy. Spiritual shock was no longer effective, so Huo Yuao didn't use it, but Zhang Peng still couldn't take Huo Yuao's other spiritual type soul skills. The gap between their spiritual powers was just too vast. Therefore, Zhang Peng had no choice but to go all in. In that moment when he was struck by spiritual confusion, Zhang Peng could have done something to weaken part of the soul skills effects, but he decided against it. Instead, he chose to take the soul skills' entire effect. The reason for his choice was so that he could retaliate and end the battle with his exuviating cicada. Zhang Peng would defeat his enemy and win this battle if he was successful, but if he wasn't, then he would turn and escape. Zhang Peng was a member of the Holy Ghost Church's worship hall, but he never considered placing his life on the line for the Holy Ghost Church. Zhang Peng's idea was good, and his tiger claws were already right behind Huo Yuao's heart. Everything was going according to plan. Unfortunately, he forgot about something. Huo Yuao still had another extraordinary skill, and that was spiritual detection. Spiritual detection conferred 3-dimensional detection to Huo Yuao, and even if he didn't realize anything when Zhang Peng began his attack, his reappearance with all those soul power and spiritual power undulations in the air was long within Huo Yuao's senses. Therefore, Zhang Peng's tiger claws still sliced through the air anticlimactically in the end. Missing an attack at full strength was even more agonizing than taking a heavy hit from an enemy. Zhang Peng almost vomited blood. And Huo Yuao? He reappeared behind Zhang Peng's back. His dark golden terraclaw didn't grow bigger this time, but a 5-sharp dark golden about 30 centimeters long plunged into the Scorpion Tiger Douluo's back and protruded from his chest. Zhang Peng's body froze in midair, the corner of his mouth curved, as he was very unconvinced and unwilling about what had just happened. His eyes were filled with hysteria, and his soul power immediately erupted from his dantian. Zhang Peng's heart had been impaled, and he couldn't possibly continue living. He had dominated the world throughout his lifetime, and he wasn't willing to just die like this. Zhang Peng's stable soul core within his dantian was suddenly triggered by his riling soul power. Self-destruction. This was Zhang Peng's final choice. He had to take Huo Yuao with him even if he had to die and disappear from the world. A transcendent Douluo self-destruction was comparable to that of a Class 9 stationary soul cannon shell. Zhang Peng chose such a brutal path, and he lived up to his name as the Scorpion Tiger Douluo. Zhang Peng's muscles immediately contracted, and even his skeleton was withdrawn toward his chest. Huo Yuao's dark golden terraclaw was instantly stuck. Zhang Peng was using his full strength right before his death to tie Huo Yuao down. Zhang Peng's eyes weren't dimming at all in this moment. There was only hysteria in his eyes, and otherworldly insanity, the kind that didn't belong to this world. Since he had chosen to self-destruct, then he had to pull Huo Yuao down with him. He wouldn't give him a chance to survive at all. A transcendent Douluo's eruption right before his death was absolutely terrifying. Not even an ultimate Douluo could easily shake Zhang Peng's grip within a short period of time. Zhang Peng even raised his hands and used his own tiger claws to clamp down on the dark golden terraclaws protruding from his chest. He used all the strength he had left to channel his soul core and stop Huo Yuao from leaving. However, he couldn't see Huo Yuao, who was still behind him. Huo Yuao didn't panic at all because of Zhang Peng's retaliation right before his death. His expression didn't even change. There was only pity in his eyes. This pity was towards a dying man, towards one who had been defeated, and towards a formidable individual. Huo Yuao planted his left palm soundlessly on Zhang Peng's back, while his torso, which was almost pressed against Zhang Peng's back, erupted with intense bluish-green colors. Huo Yuao's formidable ice empress wrath immediately swallowed Zhang Peng's body and bathed his entire body in bluish-green light. A cold sensation that chilled even his heart followed his veins as it coursed through his body. Zhang Peng didn't have any strength to resist this because they were so close together, and he was using his full strength to trap Huo Yuao and trigger his own soul core. A transcendent Douluo's retaliation right before his death was powerful. However, how could a tidal Douluo who had spiritual power that rivaled that of an ultimate Douluo, who possessed 2 formidable soul cores and had an ultimate ice martial soul, be any weaker when he had the absolute upper hand? Zhang Peng's body immediately froze, and he realized to his intense fear that his rapidly exploding soul core's rotation was starting to slow after he was struck. Zhang Peng's blood was also starting to freeze, and every ounce of strength that he had left was quickly disappearing as his heart froze over. No! Zhang Peng wanted to shout at the top of his lungs, but his voice stuck in his throat. He could only wheeze, and he could no longer speak with that originally bright and clear voice of his. Huo Yuao's dark golden terraclaw vanished, and Zhang Peng's blood, muscles, and skeleton had been frozen. He could no longer trap Huo Yuao's claws. Zhang Peng's tiger claws crumbled and broke as the 2 figures separated in midair. Shadows flickered as Huo Yuao reappeared 1,000 meters away. Boom! Bluish-green flames erupted in the air like firecrackers exploding through the sky, but a formidable soul master who had dominated the entire continent, who was a transcendent Douluo, was obliterated just like that. Huo Yuao descended from the sky, and his aura seemed to be raised to its highest possible level in this moment. This battle wasn't that magnificent or spectacular, but everyone who was watching fell silent at the outcome. This was the 4th one. This was already the 4th one, and 2 had perished in battle. Huo Yuao used his formidable strength to tell everyone that what he had claimed about 10 battles wasn't an impossible task. Zhong Liwu's expression was as black as could be. However, there was no turning back for him. He was already sustaining such heavy losses, and if he still couldn't gain anything from it, the Holy Ghost Church would be taking an overwhelming blow in both their strength and their mental states. He was supervisor to the Sun Moon Empire's entire army, and if his reputation suffered like that, how would those soul engineers who never had a good impression of him think about him? Zhong Liwu's dark and gloomy expression gradually turned cold. As matters were, he could only capture Huo Yuao and win this battle so that he could make up for everything that had happened. Huo Yuao gradually drifted down, while Zhong Liwu raised his head and stared at him with burning eyes. There was a tinge of hysteria in Zhong Liwu's eyes amid all that iciness. The same hysteria in Zhong Liwu was vastly different from Zhang Peng. Zhang Peng's insanity was retaliating when on the brink of death, but Zhong Liwu's insanity was like a sharp knife plunging into Huo Yuao's chest. Huo Yuao's breathing became a little rushed, and it seemed like he had expended a lot of energy from his 4 continuous battles. However, his eyes were still as calm as ever, and he wasn't affected by his breathing. Huo Yuao stared back at Zhong Liwu sharply. If Zhong Liwu's eyes were like a razor-sharp knife, then Huo Yuao's eyes were like mountains of ice. No matter how sharp that knife was, it couldn't pierce through the mountain, which seemed like it was made from mysterious ice over 10,000 years, and descending from the sky with a crushing pressure. Nobody knew how much energy Huo Hua Yuao had extended besides himself, and Zhong Li could only make certain judgments based on the soul skills that Hua Yuao had used in his previous fights. Hua Yuao's eyes revealed a trace of ice gold light as he stretched his arms out to his sides. Circles of icy blue light rippled from his icy war god's armor one after another, and formless ice elements condensed toward his body at an incredible speed. Star Anise icy coagulation. Zhong Li suddenly howled, and it sounded like a dragon's roar as his soul rings rose from beneath his feet. A formidable aura emerged and flourished. Zhong Li's soul rings only had two colors, black and red. Yan Xiaosh's expression changed drastically out of fear when he saw those soul rings. Zhong Li's soul rings weren't like that when they had last battled, but he had 6 black and 3 red soul rings now. His combination wasn't that much inferior to Hua Yuao's. The colors of a soul master's soul rings didn't mean everything, but they were a symbol of a soul master's strength. Furthermore, Zhong Li was an evil soul master, and he was a transcendent Douluo. The Holy Ghost Church's supreme leader was stronger than anyone had expected. Hua Yuao's expression grew solemn. He was aware that after his previous 4 battles consumption, his battle against Zhong Li would be the hardest moment today. If the previous evil soul master's cultivation ranks were lower than Hua Yuao's, then Zhong Li's true strength was definitely comparable to Hua Yuao, and possibly even stronger. Hua Yuao's only advantage was his 2 soul cores. His chances of victory against Zhong Li would also decide his chances of success in this 1 versus 10 contest. This battle would determine the outcome. Zhong Li pointed his right hand into the air as a black soul ring flickered on his body, and an enormous staff appeared in his hand. This staff was black all over, and another silhouette appeared behind his back when it appeared. This figure didn't seem very big, about the same size as Zhong Li's body. However, everyone who was watching could feel their hearts constrict when this shadow appeared. What was that? Yan Xiaosh had crossed paths with Zhong Li before, and even he wasn't entirely sure what Zhong Li's martial soul was. Ellison's expression had become incredibly solemn as he watched in the distance. He muttered under his breath. Back then, Yishishui's martial soul mutated into a blood soul demon puppet. Zhong Li's martial soul seems superior to Yishishui's martial soul, and it must have mutated once more. But for some reason, it feels extraordinarily powerful. Its origins must be similar to Yishishui's blood soul demon puppet. Yishishui's blood soul demon puppet is a martial soul that improves continuously by nourishing itself with human souls. This is one of the most important reasons why Elder Mu couldn't approve of her anymore, no matter what. Many humans have perished at Yishishui's hands, and Zhong Li's martial soul should have the same characteristics as hers. I just don't know how powerful he can be. This battle will be very difficult for Yuao. Yan Xiaosh forced a laugh and said, "What this child is doing is too risky. He's challenging the Sun Moon Empire's powerful individuals all by himself. He really..." Ellison shook his head gently. I can understand what he's thinking. He's laying down the foundations for his future. At the same time, he really is confident to some extent. Perhaps he is estimating his chances at 50%, but 50% is enough to try. As long as he can complete this battle peacefully, then no matter who he faces afterwards, he will definitely be able to escape with his life even if he loses in the end. And if he lives after today's episode, then he will undoubtedly give everyone a big surprise. Hey! Yan Xiaosh glanced at Elderson in surprise. Surprise? What surprise? Elderson glanced back at Yan Xiaosh and said, "We are soul masters, and we have to deal with any problem rationally. However, once our cultivation rank reaches a certain standard, we have to be passionate, and we have to be crazy, besides just accumulating and working hard. I have lacked this insanity, and that's the reason why I have dallied for so long. What Yuao is doing is relying on external forces to fully unleash his potential. When he obtained his second soul core, his potential far exceeded ours." Yan Xiaosh started to think. Using battles to unleash one's potential, he did want to do that, but at his cultivation, finding a suitable opponent who could threaten his life was just too difficult. There were some in Shrek Academy, but who in the academy would wish to fight with him to the death? A showdown with outsiders to the death was too dangerous, and it was hard to find such opponents. Hua Yuao had just recently obtained his second soul core, and he was doing this to train himself so that he could fuse with his 2 soul cores even more perfectly and seamlessly. He also wanted to stimulate his immense potential at the same time so that he could prepare for the future. The future? What was Hua Yuao's future like? Yan Xiaosh couldn't tell what Hua Yuao's future would be like anymore. He was only praying for him, praying that he could emerge victorious against Zhong Li in this battle. However, he didn't approve of how Hua Yuao was forcefully pressuring himself. He was up against a powerful evil soul master. How dangerous was that? Hua Yuao and Zhong Li's battle had begun in the sky. Zhong Li didn't attack Hua Yuao at once. He tapped his staff in the air as a deep howling sound could be heard, and the enormous head of some beast appeared in front of him. Surprisingly, it was a dragon's head. It was entirely black, but it emanated translucent green light as intense green flames danced within its eyes. Chilly and sinister winds billowed through the air as the dragon head appeared. What was that? Yan Xiaosh had crossed paths with Zhong Li before, but he had been incinerating himself back then so that he could buy time for his companions. While Zhong Li didn't give his full strength in that battle, Yan Xiaosh now watched as Zhong Li suddenly released an enormous dragon head. This dragon head seemed to be related to his martial soul, yet it seemed like it wasn't. Yan Xiaosh was astonished. How powerful is Zhong Li Wu, exactly? Not many people in the Holy Ghost Church knew what Zhong Li Wu's true power was like, not to mention Yan Xiaosh. The enormous dragon head wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Its large black frame gradually snaked out, and the dragon's claw quickly reached out as the dragon slowly revealed its tremendous body. This was a giant black dragon. However, the differences were that this black dragon didn't have scales, muscles, or flesh, but was formed entirely from black bones. Even then, this black dragon's aura was comparable to that of an actual dragon. Hua Yuao didn't attack Zhong Li Wu as he was releasing his dragon. Instead, he just hovered quietly in midair and waited. He had his icy war god's armor covering him, so nobody could see his expression, while he was using Star Anise icy coagulation to swiftly recover his soul power. Why didn't Hua Yuao take this opportunity to attack? Shrek Academy's various elders were all worried. The black bone dragon took 10 seconds to appear fully in front of everyone. The dragon was 100 meters long, and its wingspan was also about 100 meters wide. This size wasn't considered much compared to a top-tier individual's martial soul true body. Soul masters like Elderson's martial soul true body could easily reach 1,000 meters. However, this black bone dragon looked almost material. Furthermore, all sorts of illusions and images flickered in the sky as it appeared. There were mountains of corpses and seas of blood, and they all belonged to soul beasts. There were countless soul beasts, agonizing cries echoing through the heavens, like there were uncountable avenging beast spirits crying out hysterically. How many soul beasts did Zhong Li Wu have to kill to create something like this? Zhong Li Wu was standing on the enormous bone dragon's skull. He was very small compared to the bone dragon, but he gave off a stifling feeling that created a terrifying pressure. I discovered this set of dragon bones in some historical remains. The dragon's soul hadn't dissipated back then, even though the dragon itself isn't considered a top-tier draconic species, and even though its bloodline isn't even pure, this dragon has a tinge of the silver dragon on its body. You've probably heard of the history of the dragons, that the dragon god split into the golden dragon king and the silver dragon king. In addition to the 9 sons of the dragon god, they were considered kings of their species. Their descendants all have a little of their blood in them, but the truth is, there are still some other secrets. Only the dragon god's 9 sons passed on their bloodline. The golden dragon king and the silver dragon king had no offspring. The golden dragon king met its demise for some unknown reason after the split, while the silver dragon king disappeared. That was the reason why the dragons fell from grace. However, the dragon god released large amounts of energy when he split into the 2 dragon kings. Some of that energy contained the golden dragon king's ultimate strength and the silver dragon king's control of the elements. Those dragons who were bathing in the dragon god's favor were partially affected by those energies, and their claims afterward about how they possessed the golden dragon king or the silver dragon king's bloodline arises from this fact. The silver dragon king blessed this dragon when it was still alive. Therefore, the dragon soul is undying, while it also possesses part of the silver dragon king's powers. This dragon is the strongest beast spirit among those that I possess, and it took me 10 years to capture it, and I couldn't receive any external help during that period of time. 10 years later, the dragon's strength enabled me to break through directly to become a transcendent Douluo. Subsequently, I took over as the Holy Ghost Church's supreme leader. Normally, I would never use this dragon's power, because it has become my origin beast spirit, and even part of my martial soul. Today, you can be proud that you forced me to unleash my bone dragon king. Zhong Li Wu's voice was deep and cold. The bone dragon king's aura became a little stronger, and the sky a little darker. With every syllable he uttered, Zhong Li Wu's soul rings flickered amid the black light from the beginning to the end, and nobody could tell whether he was using his soul skills. You're spouting so much such nonsense. Who Yuao said plainly, aren't you afraid that I recover all my strength during this time? Zhong Liwu laughed out loud. So what if you recover? Do you really think you can challenge me one-on-one? Furthermore, what you've expended before along with the holy lady's strength isn't that easy to recover from. I'm spouting so much nonsense to you only because I'm confident of defeating you. The heavens and the earth will change as the winds and clouds rumble. A strange sight occurred as Zhong Liwu exclaimed those words. The giant dragon beneath his feet suddenly turned green, and the dark clouds in the sky turned green at the same time. Strong winds gusted through the air, and the heavens and earth did seem to change in that moment. Wind. This was the power of wind, and Zhong Liwu was completely unlike an evil soul master at this point. Strong winds billowed as tiny tornadoes appeared in the sky and swept toward Hua Yuao. Frightening winds gusted at him, and the elements of water in the sky swiftly plummeted as Hua Yuao's star anise icy coagulation was dispelled just like that. Such powerful winds. Is this the Silver Dragon King's mastery over the elements? This peculiar fighting style was entirely out of a normal soul master's scope, and not a single person could tell what soul skill Zhong Liwu was using. He was using his beast spirit to fight, and his beast spirit was entirely different from Hua Yuao's spirits. Hua Yuao was the only person who could understand a little about what was happening at a time like this. He still couldn't tell what Zhong Liwu's martial soul was, but he could be sure that Zhong Liwu had relied on his martial soul to capture this Bone Dragon King as his beast spirit. Zhong Liwu should be targeting soul beasts, but there were so many soul beasts' agonizing cries, while he only had one beast spirit. This meant that those soul beasts that Zhong Liwu had killed had probably become nourishment for this Bone Dragon King. It was no wonder he wanted to chase down and kill the beast god, Ditian. Of course, Zhong Liwu wouldn't use this Bone Dragon King to consume the beast god if he was successful. Instead, he would directly control the beast god as his new beast spirit, and he would probably use that new beast spirit to consume this Bone Dragon King. Zhong Liwu's own strength increased continuously with this continuous cycle of the strong swallowing the strong. Zhong Liwu evolved with every instance. When Zhong Liwu's spirit was sufficiently powerful, he would consume other soul beasts to strengthen his beast spirit. When his own beast spirit wasn't strong enough, he would go the other way and change his beast spirit. Zhong Liwu himself probably wasn't sure how many soul beasts had died at his hands from the beginning of his career until now. When he was a transcendent Douluo, his soul skills were probably all auxiliary skills to support his beast spirit. What a formidable evil soul master. He has his own salient characteristics and overbearing might. Hua Yuao shook his arms amid the strong winds and swiftly soared into the sky. However, he realized to his surprise that he couldn't really control his body, as his attempt at breaking out wasn't successful. Any kind of flight had to rely on air resistance and airflow, whether the individual flying was using the air in the sky or releasing air from his own body. When Hua Yuao released his soul power once more, he found that the air around him had been completely sucked away. Hua Yuao's soul power landed in empty space, and his body barely moved before he stopped. Right at this moment, enormous green blades of wind that were several meters long and about a meter thick cut down toward him from all directions. Ear-piercing crackles could be heard as gashes were opened in the air again and again. Hua Yuao felt like the air around him had been shattered, and he was about to be torn apart. Strength like this is just too frightening. I can't fight, and I can't even control my own movement. What do I do? Do I take this head on? These winds are actually so powerful. Hua Yuao's eyes glowed as he swept his right arm in front of him, and he began to move. Light flickered as he vanished into thin air just like that. Right when everyone thought that he had used instant teleportation, he reappeared at his original spot. Hua Yuao's disappearance and reappearance coincidentally evaded the first few blades. He had a phase in and out on the spot, and his position seemed to change a little, but those changes weren't big. Zhong Liwu raised the staff in his hands, and his expression became even darker as he watched what was happening. However, there was only astonishment deep in his eyes. Normal soul masters couldn't tell what Hua Yuao was doing at this moment, but how could he not know? Hua Yuao was clearly using spatial power. Zhong Liwu was all too clear about who had the ability to control space. Ultimate Douluo, and only Ultimate Douluo, could control spatial power. How could Hua Yuao accomplish that? Zhong Liwu had seen such power from his mother and from the Darkness Holy Dragon, the Dragon Emperor Douluo. Zhong Liwu had also seen this from Ditian when he was chasing him down. Ditian had relied on his mastery over spatial power to repel Zhong Liwu and the others. Ditian was clearly injured, but he could still launch a series of retaliations to the point where Zhong Liwu and the others had to escape wretchedly. They would have perished in the end if they hadn't escaped quickly enough. But such powers shouldn't appear on Hua Yuao. How old is he? What's his cultivation? How can he have mastered the secret of spatial power? Had Hua Yuao really mastered spatial power? The answer was no, because Hua Yuao only had a brief and superficial understanding of spatial power. Zhong Liwu's suspicions were also correct, because only ultimate Douluos could control spatial power. More accurately put, only individuals with two soul cores could do so. A human with two soul cores could use his two soul cores connection to sense and feel everything in the world more intricately. Spatial power was among those things. Those who formed two soul cores through the yin-yang complement method would have a much easier time feeling and sensing everything, because their strength was produced as yin and yang clashed and fused in their bodies. There was a certain extent of spatial transformation embodied within them. Therefore, even though Hua Yuao's control over spatial power was still very shallow, his ability to understand was even stronger than other ultimate Douluo. Faint light flickered as Hua Yuao's expression grew strange, because his understanding of spatial power grew deeper with every break through space. What was spatial power? Spatial power was just different nodes of time. One who wished to master the secrets of spatial power also had to master the transformations of time. The secrets contained within this were extraordinarily profound. Those blades forced Hua Yuao to understand spatial power a little better, and he couldn't evade every blade because he was still a little unfamiliar with what he was doing. However, a single blade couldn't really hurt him with his icy war god's armor. The reason why he couldn't use spatial power to phase to someplace else was because he wasn't familiar enough with it. If the beast god had been here, so what if there wasn't any air around him to use? The beast god would penetrate directly through space and appear right in front of Zhong Liwu. But even so, Zhong Liwu was still greatly astonished. The blades suddenly stopped as the tornadoes appeared once more. There wasn't just a single tornado, but many small tornadoes concentrated and stacked together. The tornadoes were actually multiplying into each other as they became an even larger one. The air was being torn apart, and some of the tornado's strength was even starting to create gashes in space. You can draw upon spatial power, can't you? Then I shall tear open space and mess everything up. Let's see how you can control space then. The beast god would have been able to control space if he were here, but Hua Yuao couldn't really do that because he was just starting out. Hua Yuao's body swayed amid the strong winds, and his icy war god's armor radiated intense dark blue light and blocked the winds around him. However, even lower tier soul masters could tell that he was expending a lot of soul power to do this. However, Hua Yuao didn't seem to care. His movements were very slow, and his arms slowly closed around his body as a strange force appeared as his hands wrapped around himself. That was a small airflow, and the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion silhouette appeared behind Hua Yuao's back. Hua Yuao was protecting this sphere like a jewel as it gradually took shape, and it was rotating in a direction opposite to the tornado. Does he plan to use this small airflow to resist my tornado? My tornado will just instantly consume it. Zhong Liwu's face was filled with contempt, but he didn't do anything. He wanted to defeat Hua Yuao, but he didn't want to kill him. He could only convert Hua Yuao into the Holy Ghost Church's holy son by capturing him, and only then could he maximize his profit. Zhong Liwu had chosen to enter a war of attrition from the beginning, but who knew that he had to consume so much because of his tactics in the end. Zhong Liwu had sent 4 people, and 2 perished in battle. 1 was returned in exchange, while the last was just missing. Hua Yuao's strength had far exceeded his expectations, and he had to be equivalent to a transcendent Douluo. Furthermore, Hua Yuao was a transcendent Douluo with an ultimate martial soul. There had to be something peculiar about that soul tool on Hua Yuao's body as well. Otherwise, he couldn't possibly become a transcendent Douluo at such a young age. But so what? Hua Yuao still had to consume energy even if he was a transcendent Douluo, and he would definitely be defeated if he expended energy continuously. Therefore, what Zhong Liwu wanted to see most was for Hua Yuao to continue using his soul power. He could only admit defeat once he was beyond a certain threshold. Zhong Liwu's tornado contained terrifying strength, but he had some way to minimize his own expenditure. This was his Bone Dragon King's doing, as it could perfectly control the element of wind so that he could minimize the soul power that he had to use. The airflow in Hua Yuao's arms slowly became bigger, but the size was relative. The small sphere started releasing its aura, but it was immediately broken once it touched the destructive cyclone. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.